It literally landed on my car like from the sky.
Did it have a name on it or anything?
We are talking about the deliciously bizarre movie Dead List, which I can best describe as a mix of Death Note meets Wishmaster meets 10 Little Indians. Essentially, it tells a story of a group of young actors in Hollywood all vying for similar parts and kind of having to sort of cannibalise each other's chances ultimately to get ahead. And we have a situation where there is this strange book where you write the name of someone in the book and they ultimately die. Just like the manga Death Note, which was then obviously portrayed as an anime and a live action movie. And the people die in kind of like really kind of like odd, bizarre ways, and that are somewhat ironic, and actually does have a little bit of social commentary even. So that again reminds me a lot of the Wishmaster in the kind of these bizarre kind of like situations that they end up killing them. And obviously you could have to get an idea about who it is, and therefore the 10 Little Indians type of situation. So it's a kind of a real fun little kind of like independent horror film that definitely has its tongue in cheek, but also, like I've said, has a little bit of social commentary. One of the most brilliantly inventive things that actually has a little bit of a biting social comment is, for example, an early victim. There's kind of he's a white guy and he's just driving home, and the kind of this curse ultimately changes him to a black guy driving, and there's this kind of call out on the police about, you know, this particular suspect who's armed and stuff, and ultimately gets gunned down by the police, and that was his death. So he turned into this black guy and ends up getting death by the police firing squad. So I thought it was kind of a very kind of obviously modern kind of twist on this kind of horror genre, but also sort of having some commentary on modern society, certainly in this particular instance. So it was all pretty fun. I've got to say, all the kind of our kind of group of actors are all quite fun, all have kind of different sort of personality types, and it almost kind of is a somewhat of a peek behind the curtain of Hollywood. That kind of really kind of shows you some of the, you know, the ground level actors, the kind of the lower tier actors who are maybe struggling for parts, and what they're kind of having to do to try and get these parts, and the friendships and the animosity behind them. So it actually works as somewhat as a character study and a kind of a drama as well. So I think this film is actually kind of quite fun on a number of levels. Does it have any negatives? I think maybe it does go a little bit too bizarre for its own good in places, and sometimes it's a struggle to kind of keep on top with what's going on and you know, what's actually going to be happening here. So I do feel the plot sometimes kind of gets a little bit kind of convoluted and lost in the shuffle, and there are some certain sequences. It almost plays like a kind of anthology in a certain way, where, you know, obviously we focus on one particular actor, and obviously he's dealing with this kind of curse and stuff, so it's just splits up into a number of coinciding kind of chapters, so to speak, and some maybe outstay their welcome more than others. There's one involving this kind of old lady, for example, which I thought just went on a little bit too long, for example. But overall, I've got to say, I thought this was a real fun movie, and I thought the performances were, you know, a little bit schlocky, but knowingly so. Obviously, they're kind of poking fun at the kind of the Hollywood machine, so I thought it worked in that respect. And obviously, we see, you know, the kind of like the decadence lifestyle, or what they want to be, the decadent lifestyle, all the kind of the girls and the drugs and all of that kind of stuff. There's one very memorable sequence, if you were a Gore fan, involving a guy that kind of ultimately melts, and it's very gooey. Let's just say that. I mean, that if you're like a Gore fan, that is the one. So it's a really bizarre one. There's definitely elements of other horror influences as well. There's a couple of things that remind you very much of the Evil Dead films, for example. So it's a fun film, and it's a kind of a different film, even though I would say it really does feel like, especially Death Note, it still is you know, somewhat of a unique kind of flavour to this otherwise filled up genre with slashers and kind of haunted asylums and stuff like that. So I kind of appreciate it as somewhat of a, you know, an odd kind of horror film, but it doesn't quite gel together completely altogether, and it does feel just a little bit choppy here and there, a little bit maybe kind of under budgeted in places. But overall, I think if you can kind of look past that, there's actually quite a lot to enjoy here, and you know, there are certain things that will kind of that will service certain horror fans, shall we say, with kind of like references and kind of like things like that. So overall, I've got to say this is definitely worth a watch if you are a B-movie fan, if you're a horror fan, horror comedy, and you can kind of maybe look past maybe some budgetary restraints and stuff like that, and you like a bit of a you know, a horror film with some social satire in it. I would definitely give it a watch. So I'll give this movie a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me comments, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.